All right, hello everyone. So this is the pre-lab discussion for our first experiment in LBB-BIAN, which is about the analysis of impure sodium carbonate. All right, so basically the objective of this experiment is to determine the amount of sodium carbonate present in a provided sample. So we will be providing your unknown sample, and that unknown sample is deliberately contaminated, all right, with some unknown impurities. But we ensure that there's sodium carbonate in that sample, all right? And the goal for you is to determine the amount of sodium carbonate present in an impure sample of sodium carbonate. All right? So usually, your chemicals and reagents are graded and classified based on the relative amounts of the analyte present and the impurities present in the sample. Okay, so the more pure your chemical or your reagent, the higher the grade, right? So to represent the composition of the analyte in the representative sample, we determine the percent of analyte present. Okay? So when you have a very old and unlabeled reagent bottle, right, you must analyze that reagent before you use to determine whether it's still available or whether it's still pure or not. So that's the goal here, right? To analyze an impure sample of sodium carbonate, right? The impurities that we add are actually inert, meaning they won't react with any of our chemicals, right? They are just there, right, to simulate a sample that is contaminated, all right? And we want to determine the amount of sodium carbonate present in that impure sample. So here we will be doing a direct titration, all right? So since our analyte is sodium carbonate, so let me get my pen. Where's my pen? Huh. Where did I place it? Where? Yeah. Since our analyte is sodium carbonate, okay, so this is our analyte, right? We will react it with a titrant. Our titrant is hydrochloric acid. In particular, we will standardize hydrochloric acid. So this will be our titrant. Okay, so again, this is our analyte and this is our titrant. One of the requirements before doing the titration is we must know the stoichiometric reaction between our analyte and our titrant. In this case, for every 1 mole of sodium carbonate, which is our analyte, you need 2 moles of hydrochloric acid, which is your titrant. So at the methyl orange endpoint, this is how the reaction will proceed. Okay, so the indicator that we will use is methyl orange. Okay, so this is what you will do. And this is where the bulk of my discussion will go. So first, you need to prepare your standard solution, okay, which is 0.1 molar HCl. So in the lab, I will teach you on how to properly use a measuring pipette. Okay, because you will be needing to pipette 8.5 ml of concentrated HCl to the large glass bottles that you have in your lockers. Okay, so I will teach you how to use measuring pipette. So hopefully you have an experience from organic chemistry, but if none, then you have to really learn how to use a pipette. Okay, but you have to be careful because you will be getting a concentrated HCl. All right. Now you will add the 8.5 ml concentrated HCl to approximately 900 ml of distilled water. Now, we will use a 10 ml measuring pipette for the concentrated HCl, but for the distilled water, since you need a lot, 900 ml, and we will be standardizing eventually, so we don't really need to be very accurate, right? Because we will standardize anyway. You can just use graduated cylinder, your 100 ml graduated cylinder. Just measure 100 ml to approximately get 900 ml. So here, when it says approximately, it doesn't have to be very precise or very exact. Okay? So approximately 900 ml. And take note, you always add acid to water. So make sure that in your glass stoppered bottle, right, you have water first before you add your acid. Okay? Don't start by putting your acid first and then adding water. Never do that. Never water to acid. Always add acid to water. Once you have done that, you close the bottle using the lid or the cap. You mix the solution and you label the bottle. All right? Okay. Now, after you have prepared your HCl, you will now standardize your HCl. Now here, the primary standard that you will use is sodium carbonate. Yes, I know that sodium carbonate is the analyte that we will determine the amount in an impure sample, but in this case we will also use another sodium carbonate, but this time this sodium carbonate is a primary standard. We are sure that it has high purity. Okay, it has high purity. It's different from the unknown sodium carbonate sample that you will use for the analysis. Okay, so there are three parts to this experiment. First is preparation of your titrant. Second is the standardization, right? So in the standardization, you will use a primary standard of sodium carbonate, not the impure sample. Now, I will leave it to you to determine the molar mass of sodium carbonate. You should know that. You should be able to determine that. All right. Now you need to label 3 dry and clean to 250 ml Erlenmeyer flasks as trial 1, trial 2, and trial 3. All right. And then you will be provided, or the class will be provided, a reagent bottle that contains a primary standard grade sodium carbonate. For each group, all right, you will obtain approximately 1 gram of the sodium carbonate and transfer it in a beaker. Again, this is approximately 1 gram. All right, I have to remove this. Hold on, because at this point, you don't need yet to weigh by difference. Okay? Because you only need approximately 1 gram. So you can just use a top loading balance here. Right? Just use a top loading balance. Right? Put your beaker in the top on the top loading balance, you tear it, and then approximately get 1 gram. Okay, per group you get 1 gram. Now, I will first talk about measuring mass before I proceed. All right, just to make sure that you know how to measure mass. All right, I've mentioned this in one of the lecture videos that in most of our analysis, we will be using analytical balance because we need to obtain highly accurate masses. But in instances when you only need an approximate mass, meaning it doesn't have to be exact or it doesn't have to be very accurate, then you only use top loading balance, right? So that we will be running the experiment efficiently. Okay, so again, the analytical balance is the one here, the one that's more protected, and this is your top loading balance. So this just a comparison between top loading and analytical balance, right? Top loading has a lower degree of precision, while analytical has a higher degree of precision. Oops, this is the other way around. Hold on. Let me exchange them. All right. So top loading balance has an exposed weighing pan on top of the instrument as what is shown here, while your analytical balance is enclosed in a draft shield. All right. So this is a transparent chamber with doors. So you can open the left door or the right door, and you can open the door on the top, depending on what kind of object you're measuring. The top loading balance is less sensitive to environmental disturbances. All right, and because there's no doors, it allows for quick and easy placement of samples, while the analytical balance is very sensitive to environmental disturbances. All right, and it takes time to put your sample and remove your sample because you have doors that you should open. Your top loading balance are more robust and portable, right? Because your top loading balance is not sensitive, right? You can easily bring it from one place to another. While your analytical balance, as much as possible, we don't want to be moving it or even touching it or bumping it because it's sensitive to environmental disturbances. So it's not easily portable. The top loading balance has higher weighing capacity, while analytical balance usually has lower weighing capacity. Okay? So we usually do not put large beakers in analytical balances because your large beakers have large weights which your analytical balance cannot tolerate or accommodate. So as I've said, analytical balances are sensitive to environmental factors like air currents, dust, and temperature changes. We will be talking about temperature changes later. Usually it can weigh about 120 to 320 grams, although there are analytical balances which can weigh higher, usually up to 500 grams, depending on the manufacturer or the model. Or sometimes you have micro analytical balances or semi-micro analytical balances that can weigh less than 120 grams. The most common readability is 0.0001 gram. So you can reach up to 0.1 milligram. All right. This last digit here is the uncertain digit already. Okay. So some precautions when you use analytical balances, as much as possible, the object that you will weigh must be centered on the pan. You must protect it from corrosion, so you avoid liquids on the pan. Okay, you must, as much as possible, keep the balance and the case scrupulously clean. I will be checking for that. All right, I will be deducting points if you leave the balance dirty. Okay, so usually your analytical balance has a brush or a camel's hair brush beside it for removing spilled material or dust. Whenever you're measuring a weight of a hot object or a heated object, you must wait for it to cool down to room temperature before weighing the heated object. Now, it's advisable to use tongs or finger pads to prevent the uptake of moisture by dried objects. All right, so these are the precautions to take note when using analytical balance. Now, I will just briefly talk about the temperature effects in weighing. As I've mentioned, before you weigh a hot object or a heated object, you must wait for it to cool down, all right? Then, that's the only time when you can weigh, right? So what happens when you weigh hot objects? So when you weigh hot objects, it can cause convection currents within the balance case, all right? And it will exert a buoyant effect on the pan. All right. Another effect is the warm air trapped in a closed container will weigh less than the same volume of air trapped at a lower temperature. So what is the effect? The effect is the mass of the object that you will measure is actually lower than what it should be. All right? The mass that you will read is lower than what it should be. Okay, so that's how your temperature affects your weighing in analytical balances. Now, another thing about weighing that I want you to know is weighing by addition versus weighing by difference. When you use top loading balance, usually we just do weighing by addition. So when we weigh by addition, you just place the container on the top on top of the balance, then you tear or you zero out the container, then you just directly place the substance and weigh. All right, so that's weighing by addition. So it's best for substances that are not hygroscopic. Now, weighing by difference, right? I already put up a video in your Canvas so that you can watch the method of weighing by difference. Weighing by difference is an indirect method of measuring mass or determining mass by calculating the difference between two measurements. So usually what you do in weighing by difference is you start with a container, right? You start with a container containing your sample, right? You weigh it on your analytical balance. Let's assume that this is an analytical balance, all right? Then you record the weight. For example, you got 25.898901 grams, okay? Now, your receiving container, let's say a beaker, where you will put your sample, right, must be ready. So you get your vial containing the solid from the analytical balance, and you gently transfer some amount to the beaker. All right? Then of course, you expect the weight of this to be lower because you have removed some solids. Okay? So you weigh this again. All right? And let's say you got a weight of 25.5181 grams. Of course, it should be less than, right? The original. So the difference between the two, right? So this is 1, this is 2, this is 7, this is 3. So 0.3721 grams. So this is the mass of the solid that you have added. All right? You measure the mass before you transfer, you measure the mass after you transfer. The difference is the amount of solid present in your beaker. So this is more accurate for solids as it will minimize your errors from spilling or materials sticking to the weighing tool. Okay? So this is best for measuring out hygroscopic substances because in this way, you can put the cap, right, on the vial to make sure that it will not absorb moisture from the air. And another thing is, usually, when your solid absorbs moisture from the air, it becomes heavier. Okay, so when you weigh by addition, for example, you weigh by addition, you put some solid in your beaker. After some time, even if you're not doing anything, the mass of the solid in the beaker will increase because the solid starts to absorb water. Okay, that's what happens when you weigh by addition. But when you weigh by difference, right, because you already know the mass of the lost mass from the original container, all right, even if the solid in the beaker absorbs water, all right, it won't be affected because you have already calculated for the amount of mass that you have added. Okay, so that's the reason why we use weighing by difference for measuring hygroscopic substances. In this lab course, as much as possible, you weigh by difference. Okay, especially if you're using analytical balances. Okay, you can only weigh by addition if you're using top loading balance. Otherwise, you weigh by difference. All right, let's go back to the procedure. So at this point, you already have 1 gram of sodium carbonate or approximately 1 gram of sodium carbonate in your beaker. Now we will prepare triplicate or 3 replicate samples of our pure sodium carbonate for standardization. So in analytical chemistry, we will do at least 3 trials. Okay? So for each replicate, all these steps must be done. Okay? You use an analytical balance. you accurately weigh the beaker containing the pure sodium carbonate. So here we are basically describing weighing by difference. Okay, you first weigh the beaker containing the pure sodium carbonate, you record the value. Then you transfer some amount, okay, to an Erlenmeyer flask or to your first clean Erlenmeyer flask. And then you weigh again the beaker and its remaining contents. Of course, you expect the weight to be lower. Now, the difference between the masses must be within the range of 0.10 grams and 0.15 grams. All right? If you got over, you repeat. All right? You throw your sample and then you do it again. Okay? So it must be within the range of 0.10 to 0.15 grams. Not less, not more. Now, of course, you need to prepare this 3 times. The masses are not necessarily equal, right? As long as they fall within the wanted range. Okay, so you can have different masses for each flask again, as long as they are within the given range of 0.10 to 0.15 grams. So once you have prepared all your samples, all right, you will dissolve the sodium carbonate in word is about, so this is approximate. You can just use a graduated cylinder and then just pour some amount of water from 40 to 60 ml. The amount will not really matter much. Okay? Because you've already have your sodium carbonate in your flask. No matter how much you dilute it, the amount of sodium carbonate in that flask remains to be the same. Okay? Then you add 2 to 3 drops of methyl orange indicator. You swirl the flask, you mix it, and then this is where the whiteboard that I was asking you to bring, all right? This is where it will be used. Okay, so when you titrate, you put your whiteboard under the flask, all right, for better visibility that the solution must be yellow in color. So once you have that, you're ready to titrate, okay? Or you're ready to prepare your titration setup. I will teach you how to prepare your titration setup, but just to go over them, you rinse the burette with your solution. Okay, so we call this step assimilation. All right, you assimilate your burette with the titrant. You always do that when you titrate, you assimilate. And then once you have assimilated, you pour your HCl solution into the burette and make sure that there are no air bubbles. Okay. Otherwise, you may need to pour more HCl into the burette. Then, wipe the burette to remove any excess acid solution. So you titrate, okay, by recording first the initial burette reading. After you have recorded, you titrate. Once you've seen the methyl orange endpoint, again, the methyl orange endpoint should be a permanent faint pinkish orange color. It must persist for about 30 seconds. Now, I will be preparing this one, okay? Because this will be our basis for the color. Okay, so I will be preparing this one. I will put this in front of the room so that you have a comparison of what the endpoint or the color of the endpoint must look like. Okay, then you repeat that titration with the other 2 samples. Okay, later on, we will talk about how to calculate your data. Okay. Once you have standardized your HCl, you can now determine your sodium carbonate. By the way, you don't have to finish all the calculations here before proceeding to the third part. Okay, just record the raw data, then proceed with the third part. Here is the part where you will start to determine your sodium carbonate. Okay, each group will be given an unknown, and then you will be receiving 3 packets containing the unknown sample. Right? So this will serve as your triplicate. Don't worry because we have prepared the composition equally or they're the same for every group. Okay? Now, you obtain one of the 3 packets and weigh it using an analytical balance. Okay? At this point, you will be doing weighing by addition. Okay? Because I think the packets are not in a vial. We'll see later, and then I'll give you proper instructions. So you transfer the contents of the packet into a dry Erlenmeyer flask, right? And label the flask as trial 1. Okay? Yeah, this is weighing by addition because you will be weighing the empty packet. So you do the same for the other 2 packets of samples. And then always remember to label the Erlenmeyer flask according to the sample it contains. After you have placed your samples in Erlenmeyer flasks, you do the same thing as the second part. You dissolve your unknown in about 40 to 60 ml of distilled water. You add 2 to 3 drops of methyl orange. Then you titrate until again you reach a pinkish orange color for about 30 seconds. And then you repeat the same procedure with the other 2 samples. Now, how will we do our calculations? Okay? So I will guide you, all right? But in the end, you must be able to understand. Okay? So, the goal here is to determine the real concentration or the standardized concentration of your HCl. So, our final calculation for this part should end up with the molarity of HCl. Okay? First, you must determine the moles of the sodium carbonate. How do you determine that? Remember, in the standardization part, where was it? Here. In the standardization part, you will be obtaining sodium carbonate and putting it into the Erlenmeyer flask. And you're weighing the amount of sodium carbonate that you have added. So we will start with the mass, okay, grams of the sodium carbonate that was added. So from grams, if we want to convert to moles, what do? We divide by the molar mass. Again, this will be your responsibility to determine the molar mass of sodium carbonate. Okay, again, the mass obtained from the experiment will be divided by the molar mass of sodium carbonate. So that will allow you to get the moles of sodium carbonate. Once you have the moles of sodium carbonate, what do you do next? We determine the moles of HCl. Okay, how much HCl reacted with the amount of sodium carbonate that we have. Okay, so you use the ratio 1:2. For every 1 mole of sodium carbonate, 2 moles of HCl will react. Okay, again, you start from grams, you calculate moles of sodium carbonate. Then you start with moles of sodium carbonate, you calculate moles of HCl. Now, for the volume of the HCl solution delivered, remember you have an initial burette reading and you have a final burette reading. You will just subtract the initial and the final burette reading to calculate the volume of HCl solution delivered in ml. So once you have the moles, you have the volume, you can calculate for the molarity because molarity is moles per liter. Just be careful because the volume that you will get here is in ml. All right, the volume must be in liters. All right, so that's how you calculate for the molarity of your HCl. Now, this is important before you do your calculations for the third part. Again, you only need the molarity of HCl if you are now doing the calculation part of part 3, the determination of sodium carbonate in an impure sample. So here, our starting value is the molarity of the HCl that you obtained from the second part and the volume of that HCl used during titration. Okay, titration in part 3. So, how do we use this information? We can calculate how many moles of HCl were used. Okay, so moles of HCl is equal to the molarity of HCl divided by the volume of HCl used. Again, be careful, right? Because the volume of HCl is usually in ml, but it should be in liters. Oops, hold on. My bad. My bad. Not divide. Molarity of HCl times volume of HCl. Again, this should be in liters. So once we have calculated the mole HCl, okay, we can backtrack. No? Moles of HCl, we need to determine the moles of sodium carbonate that reacted. Again, because our goal is to determine the sodium carbonate in an impure sample. Okay, so the reaction is for every 2 moles of HCl that will react, 1 mole of sodium carbonate will react. Okay? Then, once you have the moles of sodium carbonate, you will now calculate for the mass of the sodium carbonate present in the sample. How? Again, you start with moles of sodium carbonate. That is what you will get from the second part, or from the bullet before this. Then, you multiply the moles by the molar mass. Again, it's your responsibility to determine the molar mass of sodium carbonate. Cancel, cancel. So you have the mass of sodium carbonate. Once you have the mass of sodium carbonate, what you do is calculate the mass percent. How do we calculate for the mass percent? So you calculate, you use the grams of the sodium carbonate, right, from the titration data, divided by the grams of the sample that you initially obtained from the packet. Remember here, right? You will be weighing the empty packet and you will be weighing the packet with the unknown sample. All right, so you will subtract their masses to get the mass of the sample. Grams of sodium carbonate divided by grams of sample, you multiply it by 100 and you will have a unit of percentage. And that's how you report the mass percent of sodium carbonate. All right, so that will be our pre-lab discussion for experiment number 1. Thank you for listening.